Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Ladies, gentlemen, friends, foes, lurkers, regulars, GMO people, organic people.
Boiler room. Inbound. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
People of Earth, attention. People of Earth, attention. Welcome to the Boiler Room. The time is here. The time is nigh. It is time for another Boiler Room here at alternatecurrentradio.com. The Great Reset is upon us. The Green New Deal is upon us. UN Sustainable Agenda 2021 has been realized. UN 2030 Sustainable Goals. Coming up next, we only got 8 years to protect ourselves from what has been labeled UN Sustainable Goals Agenda 2030. And we are here in the Boiler Room to make sure that no one is afraid to speak their mind, to make sure that no one is going to fall prey and victim to centralized government-controlled food supplies, information, media, news, all of that. These people are not qualified. They are not qualified. And I got to stop that thing from freaking looping. Stop doing that to me, intro. Okay, yes, Boiler Room is here. The Social Rejects meet once again here at alternatecurrentradio.com. We are live on YouTube. We're live. Are we live on Rockfin? Let me double check. Yes, we are live on Rockfin. Rockfin, I'm sorry. I think I forgot to hit the go live button last week, and that was my bad. I did not mean to do that. But we'll get last week's episode uploaded to Rockfin as a video. So you folks at Rockfin don't have to miss out. Of course, it's up on the YouTube. And if anyone's joining us for the live show tonight and you've noticed there's a couple new Boiler Rooms in the podcast streams, but they are a little bit aged at this point. We got a few more for you, but you're going to have to go to the YouTube or the Rockfin if you want to get on those right away, because that's where the live broadcasts are mounted. And of course, at our Spreaker channel in the Alternate Current Radio main umbrella channel bucket, if you will. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Oh, it's good to see everybody out there in the chats. Good to see everybody on the Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, you might want to join it. There's a link to the join Discord on alternatecurrentradio.com up in the main menu, in the hamburger menu there. So you want to check that out. What else can I tell you? What else? I've got a great crew waiting in the wings here in the green room, over in the Boiler Room. I've got a great crew over on the Discord, a great crew on the YouTube comments and in the Rockfin comments. So thank you everybody for joining us on these various platforms. And of course, everybody going out, after the fact to the podcast streams. Again, thank you for your patience while we kind of get our editing caught up over here. But rest assured, we're here pretty much every week to do the Boiler Room thing, learning to protect ourselves and hopefully helping you learn how to protect yourselves from predatory mass media cartels that are out to skull plug your brain, polarize you, atomize you, and make your life generally shittier than it needs to be if you have a good context. All right, let's say hi to everybody. Let's open it up. Let's say hi to the man behind the Daily Ruckus and the co-host over at the Joseph Arthur Technicolor Dreamcast on TNT Radio.live. His call sign is Ruckus. His name is Adam Clark. Ruckus, welcome back to the show. How you doing tonight, man?
I am phenomenal. How are you, Hesher? AKA Brian McLean of the Brian McLean Show on TNT. Speaking of which, no, I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Of course, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to feel the same way after we're done digging through the news this evening, but I remain optimistic, I suppose. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, we do the best we can with what we got with regards to the news, with regards to the current events, but it makes it a lot easier when we all get together and do it in the group format here with everybody else, social rejects here in the boiler room, and all those social reject chapters out there in planet Earth, on that pizza crust, on that sphere, whatever you prefer. I don't care. I'm open-minded. All right. Ruck, it's great to have you, man. Let's say hello to Odd Man Out next, host of the Oddcast. You can find him on Instagram _the Odd Man Out. You can find him at Alternate Current Radio and all good podcasting platforms. Odd Man Out, what's up? Welcome back to the boiler room, bro.
Dude, it is great to be back with my people. I missed you guys. Thank you for having me. It's been way too long.
Yeah, man, it has been too long. I know you've been busy. I know you've been busting podcasts out, doing some member content, taking care of children with broken limbs, going on, trips and doing, hustle. They hustle here, hustle there. I know you've been very busy, man, but I am super glad to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you, my friend. I can't wait to talk about this insane world that we live in, getting crazier by the second.
Man, it is insane. I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but I have so many open tabs, it doesn't even matter. I mean, I can literally just basically close my eyes and spit on my monitor, and whatever internet tab it lands on, we could just, run with it. So we're going to be fine over here, man.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's welcome Infidel Pharaoh to the show. Infidel is in the mobile Infidel studio tonight. So there may be a little bit of background, but Infidel, welcome to the show, man. How you doing tonight?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. I'm in the car tonight, so but I didn't want to miss the show, so apologies if there is any noise or I get disconnected.
Hey, no problem, man. Where are you? People are wondering. Okay, he's in the mobile studio. So whereabouts in this wonderful 50-stated country are you?
I'm in the state of Tennessee.
State of Tennessee. All right. Okay.
Right
Fair enough.
west.
All right. There you go. That's Infidel Pharaoh dialing in from the mobile studio. And that leads us to the one, the only, the curator of all things Whiskey Tango Foxtrot on the interwebs. Her call sign is Lovely Spore. Lovely Spore, welcome to the show. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm great. Happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you and looking forward to breaking the ice with you. What are we kicking off with tonight, Spore?
Well, I have to admit I was a little bit lazy or time consumed today, so I didn't get to go through our icebreaker channel, which usually has so many awesome options. So I went straight for the one that you provided there, Hesh.
All right.
So it's titled Bruce Willis sells rights for AI digital twin after aphasia diagnosis.
Wow, an AI digital twin. Tell us more, Spore.
Bruce Willis may still appear on the big screen even after his retirement. The 67-year-old actor sold his image rights to DeepCake, an artificial intelligence-powered content optimization platform, after he was diagnosed with aphasia, a brain disorder that affects his ability to communicate, last year, according to the Daily Mail. Engineers at the Delaware-based company created a digital twin of Willis, putting images of his face onto AI platform where the engineers are able to create film projects in a matter of days. The Die Hard actor's deepfake already made its debut in August of 2021 when his face was grafted onto Konstantin Sokolov for a commercial for Megafan, a Russian telecommunications company. So he's already had his deepfake used out there. And according to him, he said, with the advent of the modern technology, I could communicate, work, and participate in filming, even being in another continent. It's a brand new and interesting experience for me, and I'm grateful for our team. I like the precision of my character. It's a great opportunity for me to go back in time.
Wow. Wow. So, one of the movies that we've talked about a lot on this show is called The Congress. Oh, all right. We got Mark Anderson joining us too. What's up, Mark? Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Mark.
I'm doing fine. This is my Eastern Michigan bureau behind me.
All right. Truthhound Bureau Eastern. I like it.
It is true.
All right. Well, Mark, as you came in, you may have heard, but Spore's talking. She's breaking ice tonight with the story that Bruce Willis has sold the rights. That you were going to thought I say he was going to sold his soul, huh? Maybe he did. He sold the rights for an
Like that.
AI digital twin after he's been diagnosed with aphasia and gone into retirement. So there's a movie we've talked about before here in the Boiler Room. It's called The Congress, and it has Robin Wright in it. And that's what this movie was about. It was about her basically going in and selling the rights to her image, her face, her voice, her inflections, her emotional responses, everything. You know, they brought her into a 3D scanner basically, and they scanned her body, moving, making responses, you know, the whole I'm mad or I'm happy or I'm sad, all that stuff that they do. And this has been going on for a long time. Actually, in Monterey County, where both Spore and I have lived extensively, there was I don't remember the name of the company, but there's a company there that does full size 3D scanning. So, for example, if I don't know, they're doing a Jurassic Park movie. Someone can, make a velociraptor and they can bring it into this giant scanner thing. It's just like a basically a giant tube of cameras and sensors and stuff like that, so that they can digitize it. Basically, they make a 3D model around the person or the object or whatever, and then they can animate it. So the movie The Congress is sort of an extreme version of what can happen when one sells their likeness, when one sells themselves to a digital format that can then be used by directors, screenwriters, etc. So it seems like we've got a real life case of the Congress here, Spore.
Yeah, I have a one quick question here because they've been using AIs of people that have already passed on for years now, and these people didn't have to sell their AI or their soulless version of themselves, just their physical or what their audio, like their replicas. These people, like Princess Leia was one of them, Tupac, I believe. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have passed on and never had a chance to say, "Hey, I don't want to be, pretended to be after I'm dead."
I don't want to be a puppet. I was already a real boy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
isn't
want
it
to
a
be
little
the digital
disrespectful
Pinocchio.
to those previous people that didn't have a chance to say no? I don't want that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And why
Yeah.
does he
Wow.
get to sell his?
Yeah, I see Ruckus dropped in deepcake.io. So if any of you folks want to go check out the corporate website there, deepcake.io, like deep fake, but deep
Wow,
cake.
this is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is, Mark. What do you think about that, man? Could you imagine if like some journalism company hit you up and they were like, "Hey, can we 3D scan you and check your voice and record all your voice, and we might use you in the future after you pass away to read news scripts or something like that." What could go wrong?
Well, of course, my price would be unfathomably high. I would say, yeah, put the first 50,000 in whatever account. But I mean, that would be flattering in its own way. It's interesting when I look around on the internet once in a while. We all Google ourselves every now and then, right? And if I'm revealing too much about myself and I sound egocentric, I'll be forgiven. But I came across recently, interesting, this should come up, that there's a photo of me at the Denmark Bilderberg in 2014, and it ended up in one of those photo services, like I think it's called Alamy, ALA, ALAMY. Where you buy certain photo collections, and they've got a watermark on there, so you can't copy it off the internet, but you can buy a hard print.
Mhm.
And they were selling one of me at a Bilderberg meeting for $32.
Without your approval.
Yeah, I didn't even know they had the photo up there for sale. I didn't mind, but this isn't an exact example of what you're talking about, but it sort of looks that general direction, right? That some part of you has become commercialized. And in this case, I was not aware of it. It wasn't like a high-priced photo, like, a shot of Elvis at his last moment in life or something. But it was just interesting that it was there at all, and that it had a price on it. And if you wanted it without the watermark, you'd order the print and get it in the mail, or maybe they'd send it electronically and you'd print it out yourself. But this just happens to come to mind as you bring this up. It's interesting though. Deep cake, it kind of rhymes with deep state.
Yeah.
That's just something that popped in my head when you first started talking about it. But I mean, this could be an interesting thing if people long since passed away in their physical form could be immortalized in that way. If it's done in a somewhat non-exploitative and learned way, where we can preserve the memory of somebody's essence, but also their knowledge, right? Because one thing that I've always grappled with, and maybe you guys have too, Ruckus and Odd Man Out, etc., is that the big journalists, the legacy journalists, they're writing the history, right? They write these reports that are almost free of the truth. It's pretty amazing to pull that off, but they manage to do it. They liberate themselves from reality. And their reports, which are almost completely bereft of any hard facts or any reliable information, that's what's becoming history, right? It's pretty disturbing. So each news report represents a component of a completely false history that'll be written later in the history books, or at least slanted, if not false. And so these legacy media people are the only ones that want to be remembered. They're the only ones that want to be important. So how do you level the playing field, right? How do the Heschers and the Mark Andersons and the Odd Man Outs and the others, how do we be remembered? Do we have to bury time capsules in the ground? I've actually thought about that. And in fact, I've got my name in 2 time capsules I know of, and only one of them has to do with news. The other has to do with a band. But how do we, besides a headstone at some cemetery or whatever, how do we get listed in who's who? How do we be remembered for generations, to come? And in a way, we should be, right? I'm not tooting our own horn, but at least we're trying to break through this wall of lies, chipping away slowly, perhaps more quickly than we realize. But how do we get remembered? How do we build our own legacy when the whole system is trying to say that, we're not even real journalists? In fact, Vanessa Beeley, who's often on UK Column like I am, you might have heard she went to the elections in the Donbass region, and she was specifically targeted. This is at the UK Column website right now. She was specifically targeted by name by a French minister who's high up with Macron. And, they put like journalists, they put quotes around her name. And then there's this other article linked at UK Column where it lists her and a bunch of other journalists, and they talk about them like they're not even reporters at all. That we're just a bunch of Putin boosters and Putin lovers, and we're aiding and abetting the enemy. And only if you're with the Guardian are you really a journalist. If you're not with the Guardian or the Independent or the Daily Mail or the New York Times, you don't even count to live. Your name shouldn't even be mentioned. And so these are actually things I've thought about, how to be remembered. But some of this might be a little outlandish or over the top. I'm not saying this is the whole answer, but it does address an interesting question.
Yeah, and I wanted just respond to that. I mean, that's a really, really great point. I guess the scary thing here is like for Bruce Willis, for example, they can take his image and in his voice and create a faux Bruce Willis that could be in the future used to say something like he was all pro nuclear war, or like it could be used for anything, any sort of media propaganda, and it could be like,
Right.
oh well, this is somebody that you respected. You grew up with Bruce Willis. You've thought he was a great actor and a good person your whole life. And then
Yeah.
they put this fake person up, and then he's used as something to push something to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the question. Who will control this? Will it be just another monopoly? How many monopolies do we have to have, right? Just the same old people. Is this going to be another Bezos project, another Microsoft thing, or yeah, who's going to control it? Who's going to control the sperm bank, so to speak?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question, but it could, like so many things, it could be used in an interesting and informative way. Imagine having George Washington around again in his essence, right? Or Thomas Jefferson, but the technology and the timelines don't line up quite right. Although
Yeah.
I've been to wax museums, there's a wax museum in D.C. Where there's one of Thomas Jefferson, and it's really realistic. When you stand next to him, it's like, whoa, hey, dude.
Funny how that concept has never traversed its way into like the Michael Crichton zone, right, Ruckus? Like we think all the time about what it would be like to bring a velociraptor back, but we never really think much about what it would be like to bring a founding father back or something like that. That's kind of an aside that Mark sparked in me there for a moment, but yeah, we're more interested in bringing monsters back that could cause an apocalypse than we are anything like that. But it does raise an interesting question, Ruckus. I actually had one of my guests on today on TNT. Really interesting cat. His name was Bob Zeidman, and he wrote a book called Animal Lab. And Animal Lab is sort of a modern sequel to Animal Farm. And it's like it's set in like current times where all the animals wake up in a laboratory and they can talk to each other, but there are no people. The people are all gone. So the animals have to figure out how to make their own society in a way that works. And I think what Mark is getting at here is like he's talking about real fairness and equity. And one place that we don't see a lot of fairness and equity is right where he said, when it comes to political thought, political analysis, geopolitical analysis, current events analysis. It's funny because they talk so much about, oh, we want equity, we want to show all the equity, but the last place you can expect to find equity is in our sort of information sphere. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a very interesting conundrum that comes up there. A lot of facets one could look at for it, and like Spore said, also, you could literally sell your image to the highest bidder, and then once you're gone, they can do whatever they want with it, which I suppose is probably the worst part. What do you think about this whole thing, Ruckus?
Can I wake up yet?
Yes, pinch
I'm
him.
waiting
Someone pinch
for
Ruckus.
the alarm to go off because this is crazy. No, I don't know. I'm sure there's something very, very specific involved with the contract and the deal, right? Excuse me. That Bruce Willis had, because I'm sure they're not blind to these facts that we're bringing up. That like, yeah, his likeness could be used to promote something that perhaps he, as Bruce Willis, doesn't agree with or doesn't stand for. So I'm sure there's something in the agreement that covers that kind of stuff, but I'm not exactly sure how or what that would look like. Because I'm pretty sure that when you sell your likeness, I mean, the people who buy, they have free reign to do with it whatever the F they want. So I don't even think, I think this is a giant, this is so crazy. Okay. back up for a second here. This is like that episode of where this could go is that episode of Futurama with the Lucy Liu bot. Remember that? They would have like these, you have these celebrity, these blank bots, and you can have the bot turn into whatever celebrity that you wanted. And then, of course, you could make it do whatever you wanted. So Fry made one that was Lucy Liu, downloaded her personality or whatever, and she was his girlfriend. So, he was doing whatever with it, right? Use your imagination, I suppose. But is that going to be possible with these Hollywood celebrities? Are they going to sell themselves out like that to where somebody can make pornographic material with their likenesses in deep fake? Can they can just, this is just crazy. I don't know. And then what does this look like in the metaverse? Can you be Bruce Willis for a day inside the metaverse? Can you rent a person? Can you be a person for like a day or something? What do you think? There's just like,
Yeah,
there's so many things that this is nuts. I don't know.
you're
That's
right.
my question.
Yeah, in the technocratic future, in the full on like singularity future, I mean, arguably, according to these people, we're going to be able to acquire or maybe rent. Shout out to Schwab, a some sort of golem that we can upload. Anyone to. We can upload a dead relative. We can upload Lucy Liu. We can upload. I mean, odd man, can you imagine the possibilities here? The sales and marketing and mind control possibilities here. I mean, they are endless. Like the various like stepped levels that you could get of these kind of things. And I would hope, dude, odd man, honestly, I would hope that Bruce Willis has like Ruckus was saying, I'm gonna star suck a little bit right here, but forgive me. But I would hope that Bruce Willis would have like the exclusive contract, right? Where he's stated his values, his, all this stuff. Like they've collected all this shit about us all, anyways, right? They know what my morals are, they know what your morals are, they know where I am all 24 hours a day. I'm using caps locks they here. Everybody knows what that means, hopefully. But yeah, could you imagine like the package that a Bruce Willis gets compared to like the one that you or I could afford? Wouldn't that just sort of be like a altered carbon sort of thing? Like you and I can afford the old jalopy version or the budget version, and of course, if we sell out to it, after you're dead, you might be there shilling for like I don't know. World Economic Forum or something like that. Like they could literally piss on our memories by doing stuff like
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
that is, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, more along the lines of the stars. I didn't even think about regular people like you and I. But another thing, Ruckus kind of stole my thunder there with the porn. That's the first thing I was thinking. But
Bruce
also
Willis,
just the just the possibilities of this and where it could lead, and just I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Um, and I had a really good thought too. Damn.
Well, we're talking about sort of the train of possibilities that one could go through here, and Ruckus was kind of talking about the creepy aspect of like what would happen, like can they use your avatar for porn or something like that, like something really degenerate that you're not into, that you wouldn't want your image on.
Well, what I was thinking was, because we were talking about the porn thing. You've already got all these like, these girls on these TikTok girls and these Instagram girls and stuff and OnlyFans and whatnot. There would be a huge market for people who would probably sign over everything, their image, their likeness, their voice, everything for a few $1,000s. And, there's no telling where that would lead. And I was also thinking too, the first movie they do with all just these images, no real, actors in it would be, I can see that being a huge, huge deal.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And now the other thing is they claim that they have AIs. We've talked about this on the show before. I'm a big AI skeptic at this point. From all my research, what I can tell is we're not close to the singularity whatsoever. Computing, yes, it's ubiquitous. Uh, simulations are interesting, and artificial intelligence seems to basically be theme and gist analysis, basically run by algorithm. And according to the makers of the most advanced versions of this stuff, it has about a 27% failure rate. So that's a pretty abysmal failure rate. That's way worse than a human. That's nothing like actual intelligence, but just imagine how that could go wrong. But I mean, it does do it, it is able, it's growing, it's getting better, and it is able to do things like take a phrase and generate an image for it, or take a description of a melody or a beat and create that. So, I mean, at what point do we lose the human in the loop altogether
Yeah.
in the entertainment industry, right? Because if you have the AI writing the script and then all digital characters, you can basically just have computers pump out garbage that people are supposed to watch, and it will just all be, you know, weird simulacrums of stuff we've already seen.
Yeah, and they can basically keep people like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and these big mega stars forever, and they wouldn't even have to develop any new stars, any new talent. And it's it's a double-edged sword. Everything, regarding technology is a double-edged sword, and a lot of people don't think about that.
Boy,
Yeah,
good point.
yeah, it absolutely is. Sport, what do you think about all this? You want to throw something in there?
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing that we have to consider is how much of ourselves I mean, we don't really know how much is being like recorded from everything that's seen from our iPhone and our computer and possibly our TVs or household appliances or Alexa, all these things that could be possibly put together to create an AI or just a uh who knows? I mean, they could put this all of our digital footprints out there that's been recorded that we've never okay with, but just kind of had to go along with at the same time that could put together a different character of who we are than we actually are as well.
Oh, so you're saying that there already exists a large set of big data collection on all of us as it is, and if somehow
Mhm.
this were to, become normalized to the point where it's like they have access to all that stuff, all kind of, that unleashes the kraken, the social kraken, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
well,
Because
it's like I mean, Bruce Willis had the money and power to be like, all right, well, I'm going to approve this, and maybe he got the chance to approve what would be used for his AI. But us normal people, we don't really get to sign any contracts or anything like that. And I mean, I know, like for instance, like I do Zoom calls for work. My video camera's on, my microphone's on. If my microphone's off while I'm on the call and I cough, I will get a notification that says your microphone is muted right now. So that means Zoom it's still hearing me even though I'm on mute. Okay? So that's just an example of an application, and I know that it is very easy for institutions to be able to turn on your camera at any time that they want, depending on what organization they are.
Hmm.
That's a
Indeed.
fact. And I mean, everybody I work with, because I work in an industry where that's part of like the technology, everybody that I work with put something over their camera. They leave the room when they have to talk privately. I mean, there's so much information that can be taken from. Y'all don't know even how many companies or apps or even browsers that can do this stuff.
That's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Sport. Thank you, because I think a lot of us, we think that, oh, these are tools of intelligence companies, and only like shadowy three-letter agencies and people with warrants can do stuff like that. But it has gotten so normal now that just pedestrian level software development kits have the ability to tap into microphones and cameras. And then what do, Ruckus? They set that up in the TOS. They put it in the in the fine print, basically, that, hey, this is everything that we can do with your data if we find the need to, right?
Who reads fine print, dude?
Just you. You're the only one I know, bro. But
Dude,
that's why I asked you.
I do. And I'm, I don't know. I have a friend who's super smart about all this stuff. And like, for example, the other day I was talking with him about something, and I was like, "Oh, except I was explaining some process I went through where I thought I was being sneaky and anonymous for some silly reason or whatever." And then I was like, "Oh, but I didn't use a VPN." And my friend, who's like a really smart IT guy, is like laughing at me about the whole VPN thing, like implying like a VPN doesn't even matter. And I'm just like, he's probably right. I don't even want to go down that path. Um, I don't know, man. It's so unfair, the things that they do in the name of whatever they're doing. Is Google's free. You want a free email account? Sure, sign up. It's free. Absolutely free. How do they do that? Wait a minute. How come it knows what I'm talking about in my email communications or on my Google Voice or my Android phone or my friend's Android phone who I was hanging out with last week? How come he got an email related to something I was talking about in front of his phone? It's just this giant, crazy, invisible spider web going on with all of these devices and all this technology. And I'm not a big fan of all of it. And I'm like you, I'm a skeptic about the artificial intelligence stuff too. So, they'd like us to believe they got everything on point with their
Yeah.
digital technocracy solutions, but they absolutely do not. There are so many fail points, so many moving parts, so much garbage. I don't even want to think about it sometimes, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Great point.
They were a lot more honest about AI when I first started working with it. I used to work this job where I used Oracle tools a lot. We used this thing called Oracle Portal. And Oracle Portal was way ahead of its time at the time. I think it was probably a bunch of other people's software work that Larry Ellison sucked up into his collective and added into this thing. It became this monster of a piece of software. It's connected to Oracle database, but you could put large documents into this thing, and and then you could run that what they called at the time the AI on it. This was, I'm talking like 2015, 2016, 2017, maybe all the way back to, I don't know, somewhere in that time zone in the 2010s, 20 teens. But we had these cool features that we used to sort of promote our service, which was the artificial intelligence Oracle stuff. But what it really did, if you looked into it, was it did prominent noun and verb analysis. It was an algorithm that would do prominent noun and verb analysis, and then you could run theme and gist on a block of text. And sometimes you would get an accurate theme and gist out of a block of text, and sometimes you would get total gibberish, but it was never something that was anything other than that, like an algorithm that could look at prominent nouns and verbs and restitch it together in a way that was a little bit shorter or a little bit of a summary. And as you can imagine, if there's any programmers out there listening, that's not super hard to do. It's advanced, but it's not super hard. Um, but yeah, they definitely blow this stuff up. And the reason, welcome back, Infidel. How you doing, man? You hanging in there? I got to check in on Infidel. He's on the road.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Sorry about that. My connection is pretty spotty.
All right, cool. Well, the reason I brought up the guy that I talked to earlier today on TNT, the guy that wrote Animal Lab, is because when I brought him on, we were kind of joking around, and he said, I would like to be able to, like, maybe when I die, freeze myself or something like that. Like maybe they could utilize my intelligence or my experience. And he's one of the first people that's like said that to me, because I think a lot of us are pretty cagey and dubious about this idea of uploading or disconnecting from your soul, yet leaving some sort of simulacrum or golem of yourself on a server or whatever. And rightfully so. There's definitely so much theological and moral conversation to be had amongst that topic. But My guest Bob Zeidman, who wrote Animal Lab, he was pretty cool about it. You know, he had no problem saying, "Yeah, I would like to upload myself or freeze myself or something. I'd like to preserve this." And I was like, "Wow, man, that's a trip to hear someone actually say that," because we're all in this sort of ecosystem so cagey and just have our guard up about about upload ideas and all this stuff, freeze my brain, do this technocratic stuff. But he was a based dude. I really liked talking to him. So it was kind of interesting to take that perspective. I thought it was interesting. And then, I think it was Shredder or someone sent me this story about Bruce Willis, and I just kind of put it all together and thought, Spore, you got to talk about this one tonight. So, yeah. Anyone, Infidel, I didn't really get your take on this, man. Are you willing to sell your image and your 3D scan to, I don't know, some technocrat that might want to make you famous or pay you for your likeness? Or do you have any desires to do anything but age into decrepitude and die? Would you like to have your yourself copied or frozen or uploaded in any way? All right, we got a slow connection there with Infidel. I'm gonna have to shift that question over to Mark Anderson. Mark, what do you think, man? Do you think we should be completely turned off to these ideas, or is it sort of understandable that people like us might be interested in this?
Boy, it's so multifaceted. Everybody's made great points. There is so much room for abuse. The misrepresentation, right? We'll use Hesher's golem or likeness, and we'll say something completely contrary to what Hesher stood for to defame and, kind of besmirch his legacy and really turn it asunder.
Right. Like you could say, I hate Meshuggah. Meshuggah is the worst band ever. And I would roll over in my grave because it's one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, I mean, different aspects of this have been tried, and so many good points. When I was at the Red Pill conference in Indy for UK Column back in July, I talked to this guy named C. Mitchell Shaw, who writes for the New American, and he had a lot of good practical advice about how to go pretty much invisible, how to have tinted windows, if you will, when you're online, voice, image, the written word, whatever it might be, and different platforms and different things you can do. And it's something that I'm going to be embarking on this fall. And so, we all have, as Spore was saying, we have this already, this exposure, and so much data on us is already being mined and has been mined probably beyond our wildest imaginations for quite some time, especially those of us now that are making a lot of noise and getting a little more recognition as the mass media cartel slowly but surely crumbles. This is why you guys are conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hats, you're anti-Semites. That's all they've got left. All they've got is name calling. They can't argue a point to save their life. They literally don't know their asses from a hole in the ground. And so they're on Desperation Boulevard. We're having a slow but sure ascendancy. So no doubt to some extent, people along our lines are being watched. But many people, the average person, is having so much data mined for commercial and marketing reasons. We know this. But, they've tried digital libraries where books would no longer be used at all. No physical books. It would be purely digital. And one in Austin, Texas actually failed. But that's probably been 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer. So, there's a huge fork in the road here, a big crossroads to consider. And unfortunately, right now, the way big tech is and the way the system operates, I'm afraid that this is probably going to be largely a negative. If it were to go forward in the system we have now, it's difficult to see how this could turn out very well, even though it has a lot of attributes like, wow, I've got a likeness of my long dead grandfather, and I can remember him, in a very meaningful and tangible way. I mean, different things that could be done with it of a positive nature, but I think we all have to admit the current system is so corrosive and so turned on its head and so anti-reality that the the potential for abuse, unfortunately, I think outweighs the potential for goodness, even though it has good aspects and good potentials. One thing that I actually imagined as everyone was talking was, if AI becomes prevalent enough, and there are opinions out there that it has inherent limits, that you could never really make an AI, a robot, enough like a human being to replace humanity. I don't know if that's true. Are those limits there? Are those limits, solid? Are they firmly in place? Is it some built-in obstacle, so you can't actually make an AI a person, a robot that would become so much like a person that you can't tell the difference, right down to their soul and their essence? I don't know what the answer is. I'm just asking the question, but you could actually write a movie, right, where AI grows and grows and grows, and people's essences, like we're talking about tonight, way beyond sperm banks, way beyond cryogenic freezing, that would actually be maybe marginalized or gotten or done away with, and all we'd have is a sort of a digital memory. And you could actually have, conceivably at least, everybody die out, and all that's left is sort of a master race of AI and the essences of everyone else. And you could actually have a virtual world where no people exist at all, except the essences of those who used to exist. And then the AI people that manage the system, who are simply the descendants of the elite right now. I mean, you could actually conceive of that, at least in an H.G. Wells, Jules Verne sense. But how far from reality is that, right? Is that conceivable that that could be done? Maybe. I'm not sure, but it's a pretty chilling scenario.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like we're open to discuss this, but we want to discuss this with proper representation and a realistic vision of what this looks like going forward. What are the guardrails here? How does freedom and liberty and all these things fit into it? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm pretty open minded about it, but at the same time, I would not. It's like the concept I'm open minded about, but knowing who's in charge of it, I am not open minded about. It's like if it was, if the four of us, the five of us, the six of us, whatever, all of us social rejects, were in charge of that, and we set it up in a way that was beneficial to humanity. Yeah, I'm interested. I want to hear from all the philosophers, all the theologians, all the tech people, everybody that has a voice in that. I'm interested. You know what I mean? Like, okay, because that's sharing a potential paradigm shift with the public and saying, hey, here's what we have, here's what we can do. We have this capability. Here's how it can benefit society. Here's how it can benefit you. Here's how you can have the same. Here's how Mark Anderson can have the same legacy, digital legacy, upload legacy, film legacy as a better one than Dan Rather or whatever, at least the same availability of his information that would be there for people to consume and make their own minds up about. There to honor your memory and to be an accurate portrayal of who you were. And hell, if there's some way to move your soul on in there and let you live forever and still let you live in the grace of all that is natural and godly, I want to hear about that too, because I don't know how that stuff works. But that's not what we get. I mean, look at the internet as a whole. Ruckus, like, think about the internet, man. When I was going to college at Humboldt State in the early 90s, mid 90s, I had a crisis because I went there to do computer stuff, but I started getting into life sciences and earth sciences and philosophy and shit. And I started looking at computers and looking down the road and saying, you know what? They're just going to use this for glorified porn. They're going to use it to lie to us. They're going to use it to market shit to us. And it's got so, like, the potential that was in it was so exciting to me, but the potential for evil in it and corruption was equally scary. So there was a moment there where I teetered and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go be a fucking oceanographer, someone that chases mushrooms around and, tests spores out and, does science stuff in the woods. And, finally I made my mind up and I, said, okay, sign me up. I'm gonna do the computer stuff. But yeah, just that whole thing of like who's in charge of all this shit, and that's sort of how we can gauge if there's even going to be a moral discussion to be had whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's actually the only argument that I've read about before coming from otherwise left leaning, or well, it doesn't matter, but I guess it does matter because there's a political spin to each, news outlet and, where you get your news from. So places that are generally politically aligned to the left, there's this argument that artificial intelligence is plagued by bias because of the human programmers and because of the data sets that it's being fed. So, it is us humans and it is real life experiences and it is, all this large amount of data and whatnot that's out there that these programs, quote unquote, learn from. And they learned that the programs basically replicate or sometimes amplify our own biases and problems, so instead of fixing the problem, it kind of like a PCR test, it kind of like makes more of it, right? So again, very skeptical, but sometimes I take the black pill and I consider, and quite concernedly so, just how much of that is fake. Do they, the proverbial they, want us to believe that the artificial intelligence is total crap because they nailed this shit like years ago? Because the technology is always like 50 to fill in the blank number of years ahead of what, like, say, the military tells us about. So I don't know, man. What if artificial intelligence, they figured out some really hot shit with some quantum computing? I mean, we did map like the human brain or the genome or so. We've made some serious, scientific achievements that, like, crickets. What happened with that? Where did that go? Where did that lead to, So I'm like, I wonder all the time about what they're doing behind the scenes, what they really have accomplished, what they're really capable of. So let's presume that they have a pretty slick artificial intelligence program that can replicate everything about you. And therefore, even though it's not really you and your soul doesn't occupy it, it's you immortally forever still here on this plane of existence or in the metasphere or on the interwebs or whatnot. Could you imagine what it would be like to be stuck with somebody like Bill Gates forever or Klaus Schwab forever? Or the head of the World Economic Forum forever. Or the World Health Organization. Or how about this? Once we go into World War III and Joe Biden gives himself executive wartime powers, what if we just had President Biden forever? Yeah.
No. This reminds me of the books. I haven't read the books, but I watched the Netflix series called Altered Carbon. And in that series, they do exactly this. They have basically it's like, I think they call it the puck. And all humans have a place in the back of their neck where this puck can be inserted. It interfaces with the spinal column, and inside of that they can hold you. They tell you it is you. It holds your memories, it holds everything, that makes you. And if you're elite enough, if you have enough money, if you're in the moneyed class, it's a technocratic dystopic future, of course, like all of our stories these days. But if you're an elite, you can have basically you can afford to have a bank of clones standing by, genetic clones of yourself ready to decant, and your puck in the back of your neck uploads to a satellite every night. So if someone takes you out, if one of your enemies takes you out, your satellite will beam your latest upload into a new puck, into a new clone of yourself, and you just you just decant, you pick up right where you left off. And if you're super elite, if you're elite enough, you can have genetic modifications that will do things like program your body to be tuned for fighting, or tuned for, I don't know, fucking mountain climbing or whatever. Or they had some female characters in there, and they had these genetic mutations, these genetic modifications added into them where they could literally be like a succubus in the sense that like they can when they're the one of the characters in there when she would kiss someone, they would basically have like an ongoing orgasm or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you could super tune certain aspects of yourself so that you would have superhuman abilities and be eternally, immortal basically. It's pretty crazy. Like I thought that it's not a very good show. I don't really recommend it aside from just seeing the vision of this particular vision of what it is to sort of be technocratically immortal. And then you start thinking about, the luminaries of technocracy and oh, this is kind of what those people have in mind for themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's all over sci-fi right now. There's a show called Upload. Battlestar Galactica's into this stuff. The Foundation, Devs, Westworld. I was talking with my guest on TNT about this today. It just goes on and on and on. And the thing that we noticed about all these paradigms they set up is there's hardly ever, like Battlestar Galactica aside, there's hardly ever any nuanced characters or good characters or any sort of hero's journey or anything like that. I mean, have you noticed that, Odd Man, that like it's always um there is no protagonist in a lot of shows these days. Like the person that's the main character is often a total piece of crap, like degenerate garbage or a murderer or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Even with Westworld, I forget the main character, the female, but like she was kind of good but bad. She wanted to destroy the world or destroy humanity because humanity she thought was too evil to exist or whatever. I mean, yeah, they you're right. And even when these characters sometimes they'll be bad, but they'll do something good, and then they try to make you forget about how all the other terrible things that they've been doing all along. And it's easy to do when you get caught up in a show. But they're definitely pushing these kind of things, and you have to think like even with Epstein, they said that he was all into I think trying to figure out how to prolong his life. He was talking about freezing his head, his brain, and whatnot. And we know that a lot of these technocrats have had a fascination with trying to figure out how to live forever for a very long time. So it's kind of disturbing when you think about it because it's so unnatural, to want to do that. There's a natural process in life, and no matter what we do, no matter how much money we have or how much technology becomes advanced, those natural processes are ingrained in us, and I think
Mm.
that it's never going to work out. I think in the way that they want it to, because it's just against nature. It's inhuman.
Yeah, great point. If I may chime in, Hesher.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like what I meant out saying there. I was once at a conference in Springfield, Missouri. It must have been 2013, and I was talking to Joel Wallach. I think that's how you say his name. He's a health guy, and I've heard this before that if we didn't have such a toxic wasteland that we live in, especially in the age of Monsanto and glyphosate and so many chemical compounds and different things in our food and in the air, soil, and water. In his opinion, the average person should be able to live to about 200. And I remember seeing, we all grew up, some of us grew up, maybe I'm dating myself a little, with those Life magazines, the large size Life magazines that Henry Luce, the Skull and Bonesman, put out. And then there was Look magazine. There were coffee table magazines in the 1960s and 70s. And I found some old ones at an antique store once, and it was from like the 50s or early 60s, and it said, "Just think of it, Mr. and Mrs. America, someday you'll live to be 65." As if that's impressive, right? And so they're kind of selling people on a short lifespan, making them think that, oh, you're living in this advanced country and man, you might get to be 65 or 70. Can you imagine? And I'm thinking that's nothing. There's tortoises and tropical birds that are outliving human beings right now. There's macaws that will live to 110, 120, and there's tortoises that I think have pushed 140, if I'm not mistaken. And so human beings have this dominion in a way, right? In a way we do, but in a way we don't. In a sense, but I think we're doing it to ourselves. And what's really ironic is the very elite that want to live so long through this digital milieu are the ones poisoning the planet and accusing us of doing it. Maybe we want to raise too many cows on our ranch or something, but they're the ones poisoning or frustrating or limiting the ability of our biological bodies to live healthier and live longer. If you have cancer, they just want to give you chemo. Is this some sort of joke, right? Chemo? Really? That's all you've got? And, it down the list, we're prevented from living longer the way we are and living better. Even if you can do one of two things, right? You can live longer, but maybe not be very healthy, and maybe that wouldn't be the greatest idea. Or you can live the lifespans we have now, let's say averaging about 90 years, but not be very sick, if sick at all, and just die a natural death. But you've lived well and healthy pretty much that whole time. But maybe we could even live longer and better the way we are biologically. But again, the very elite that want this dystopian future or push it, especially through predictive programming and all these movies and shows, they're the ones that are destroying the ability of people to live longer the way they are naturally. And so in its place, they create these dystopian scenarios, but it's just really ironic, from a Christian perspective, which is the perspective I come from. I was in a naturopath's office today, and there were some charts on the wall of the human body, the inside of the human body, the circulatory system, the skeletal system. And you look at it, and in my opinion, it's the work of a divine architect. I mean, the human body, every system in your body is literally miraculous. I mean, it is designed to the nth degree to work perfectly if given the chance. I mean, the circulatory and the nervous system alone, how many miles of nerves are in the average person's body? I think it's like 60 miles. I mean, creation has a lot of really miraculous things about it, our own bodies included. But they pollute that whole thing and they frustrate it. And then they give us this dystopian future. And then they say, well, we have money and the only authority we need to have is we have money and you don't. You don't have to elect us because we don't need to be elected. We don't need anybody delegating us any authority. Like Ron Avery, my friend, says, I'm a billionaire, therefore I've got authority because I've got money. I can set policy because I have more money than you. I mean, how tremendously arrogant is that, right?
Yeah.
And so, my summary is, isn't it strange that they muddy the waters and poison the well in terms of our current biological existence, when the people with money, Andrew Carnegie got kind of backed in a corner, so he created a bunch of libraries, the Carnegie libraries, and did something good for a change. These wealthy nutcases could be doing something good with their money, including, not polluting the air, soil, and water, not putting collective fluoride in our city water supplies, and all sorts of things they should not be doing. And so, why not allow humanity to live the best quality and quantity of life within reason, or to the full bore, to the full extent of its potentials? Why cut it off at the knees and create this digital option? Interesting and intriguing though it may be. I mean, it's interesting this whole topic came up tonight because I've been contemplating some of these very things in the last couple of weeks.
Right. It's like, are they doing it just because they can? Is this some like Frankenstein's monster sort of thing? Just this just this global apotheosis of people with money who are like, well, everybody's a useless eater anyways. They follow the Malthusian line, and oh, we need to cull this herd. And well, they don't really realize that they were the goose that laid the golden egg. But now we've got all these robots and AIs and things that can do mundane stuff like be your server at a restaurant. You can literally, if you own a restaurant, you can buy a $20,000 they call it a robot, but really it's kind of like an RC toy with it can run itself through the restaurant and deliver your plates to your customers and whatnot. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than someone you have to pay medical insurance to. Isn't that odd, man? I mean, there becomes like an economy of scale thing that starts to happen when they want to insert these things into our lives here. But like Mark is pointing out, there's just this sort of like, well, you guys are all too stupid and you guys don't make robots. You're not making AI over there, odd man out. I mean, I see that They Live dude behind you there, that mask back there. I don't think that's as sophisticated as Sophie, who was made by Hanson Robotics, which used to be here in Houston, Texas, and was sold to or given to Saudi Arabia to be the first robotic citizen of a place like Saudi Arabia. And now Hanson Robotics operates out of China's AI farm,
Yeah.
So it's like, what the actual fuck is going on here? I get a lot of people talking to me about how, we have to compete with China's artificial intelligence. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's the same thing. We're both running the same program. We're shipping our own scientists over there to run that stuff over there. And why is that? And why, what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people aren't really clicking on this yet, but I mean, over to you, man, and then over to Ruckus, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah, you're totally right, man. We're sharing our technology with all these different countries, and countries are stealing it. Even countries that claim to be our allies have been stealing our tech for years and years, and nothing's done about it, or hardly anything's done about it. It's insane. And like you were saying about the restaurants, we were at a restaurant probably about 2 months ago in Nashville. It was just like a chicken wing joint. And here comes this robotic server out of the back of the kitchen. And we were like, what the hell is that? And it had like this big plate of wings and fries on it. And it went over to the table, and there was this family over there. And I don't think they knew that it was coming, because the looks on their face was like the same looks that were on our faces. Like, what? And then one of I think she was the hostess, went over and like said something to the people, and then they got the food. But I thought, I'm seeing like there was like a dozen servers in there, and I'm like, I wonder if these people realize that this thing is going to be taking their jobs. There's not going to be, they probably do. They probably don't think too much about it, but it's just crazy where we're headed. Down on the college campus here at UT, they have those delivery robots that are like, have the four wheels. They're everywhere. And it's just so strange to see that, the little thing just goes by you, and it's like, it's just bizarre. But yeah, there's great potential to do good, but there's so much potential to do evil, and that's scary, because we know from looking around at the world and the examples we've seen with war and propaganda and all kinds of different things, that evil exists, and a lot of people cannot resist power, and it's like there's no place to stop. Where's the ethical standards there, and who's in charge of those ethical standards? And it's as cliche as it sounds, it's a slippery slope.
It is, and it's a quagmire, and it's above everybody's heads. Even my own, as an IT professional, is still above my head in so many realms. Like, I can click in on a lot of stuff, but when it comes to like, the theological part, the moral part, the ethical part, like I need Team Human backing me up. This is too big of a decision. And I feel like it should have been the same way when smartphones were introduced to all of us and put in the hands of people in developing countries that didn't even have laptops yet, and didn't know what kind of crazy fucking shenanigans were going on in the mass media out here in the West, like you don't even know what that does to a society to drop that item into the hands of people that haven't even been on the internet yet. Like, we can't even imagine what kind of paradigm shift that is, man.
That's interesting you say that. Yeah, the whole Starlink, it's like, I mean, I just can't, yeah, like you said, I can't imagine having that technology just all of a sudden. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said, we got this thing, it's called the Gorgon. Yeah, it's like this satellite type thing that can see. It's got these like crazy cameras on it that can see like down on Earth and all that stuff. Um, and I think that's ran by maybe DARPA. I can't remember now, but like the Starlink is going to be it's cool in one sense, but it's also going to be one of those things that ends up helping to watch everybody and to spy on everybody. So it's again a double edged sword.
Yeah, yep, and it's being used politically too already. If you look right now,
Yeah.
you can see that Musk is saying, "Hey, you should let me enable the people of Iran with my devices and my Starlink." And I was talking with Patrick Henningsen about this earlier, and he, because I brought up, didn't he do that in Ukraine too? And he said, yeah, and he was telling me that like that happened specifically when the offensive was happening at the crap, I'm blanking out on the name of it, but the steel mill area, where they had all those embedded Azov guys.
Yeah.
It'll hit me. I know the name of it. It'll hit me. Someone will remind me in the chat. But that was when Musk was, sending over all this gear, right? And the gear was sent over uh, by a lot of people lost their lives getting that stuff there. You know what I mean? It was not easy to get there. And why Elon it wants to give communication technology to those particular wings of soldiers, you folks know what I'm talking about out there, is a little bit questionable. That's weird. Why you want to give technology to people that have certain ideologies over there? Yeah, at Azovstal. Thank you, Derpscan. Azovstal. So that's where a lot of those guys were embedded. Those fighters, and a lot of people died getting that gear there. And what good did it do? It's like, oh, we're going to get you this communication gear, it's going to save you, it's going to help you. No, Azovstal went down and they got BTFO'd hard, man. They they got spanked, and a lot of people died trying to get that stuff there. And the Western media tries to sell it to us like, oh, this is a great thing. These people need communications. That's all you need to know. It's wonderful. It's great. They don't tell you, how many people died getting it there and what happened to the people, that did get it there. They're all prisoners of war now, whatnot. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, man. I just think with with Elon or anyone in big tech, connected to big tech, it's always been so close to Intel and so close to the military industrial complex. I don't think that even the best intentioned technocrat or technical, person is going to be able to keep their company away, not join with the military industrial complex. It's an inevitable that it has to be political. It just is what it is.
Yeah, especially now that everything's politicized and everybody's used to it now, or we're not used to it, but it's just like the veil's down on that. Like everything's politicized now, double inverted politicized in many cases. Let me go over to Ruckus real quick here. So Ruckus, I know you got a show coming up, man. I don't want to hold you too late tonight, but I would love to hear your take on where we land with this one. Where do we go from here? I think we've pretty much sealed it. So, if you got to go, just let me know. We'll take an intermission and see you out. But if you want to hang, we can do that too, man.
No, I might go on a little bit of a rant here for a bit, but then after that, I'll probably bounce.
Perfect.
This is a huge pile of fustercluck, I suppose. This is a giant pile of problem, solution, reaction, fustercluck. That's what I'm going to call this. We've been seeing this. This is what ever since the pandemic started this like really going. We had little tiny little tests and planting some seeds and building some beta programs, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, maybe across a decade or two. But the pandemic really accelerated this. And the dead giveaway was when Klaus Schwab came out and said as much, quite literally. He wrote a book called The Great Reset. And he said, we have an opportunity. We can now have a great reset. We can now just say, fuck everything and let's start over and we're in charge. Except it was him and his cronies and his buddies. So I find it really strange to me that when we talk about these things or try to talk about these things to quote unquote normies, they treat us like we're some sort of crazy conspiracy theorist. Okay. Why isn't Klaus Schwab or all of these rich billionaires who are saying they want to do this shit to you not a crazy conspiracy theorist and you're just okay with it? Crickets.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm like, all right, so there's something else going on here. This is all leading towards this. What I'm talking about here is this technology, right? The fourth industrial revolution. So if you were to tell somebody, say 5, 10 years ago, how cool would it be if we, instead of making, humans flipping burgers in a restaurant, wouldn't it be pretty neat if we replaced that human being with a robot that flips burgers? Do you think people would be like, hey, that sounds like a great idea? Or do you think 5 to 10 years ago, they might be like, hey, wait a minute. Doesn't that mean that human worker is going to be out of a job? This is not cool. This is scary. There was a lot of uproar about the potential of robots replacing humans in assembly line type jobs, right? But we've been slowly, like the frog has been slow boiling with all of this stuff. How many cashiers you see working at the grocery store these days? I usually see a lot of people standing in an effing long line to check out the groceries themselves. Pretty sure that's a machine. Basically, that's a robot. Replaced human jobs, right? Just happened right in front of our eyes and we didn't know it. But those self-checkout machines have been there for a while. But how interesting and how convenient that they became frontline solutions in this war against the invisible enemy to help us get over this pandemic. Problem, solution, problem, reaction, solution. The technocracy is the solution. I could bring up a million of these examples. So I think you see where I'm going with this. Now, I think the next phase of this, especially when there's so much of this talk of distrust, we don't trust anything anymore. We don't trust the news. We don't trust the politicians. We don't trust the science, especially us dirty anti-vaxxers, right? So there's a lot of trust issues happening right now. We certainly don't trust the banks. We don't trust the economy. We definitely don't trust our money. So all of these things are going to need some sort of technological, technocratic solution too. And I think we're going to be pushed towards some sort of decentralized solution, which on the surface could be like so many of these things we've been talking about, like the internet and like technology, could be a tool for good. But unfortunately, as history has shown us, and especially when humans are involved and these dirty, secretive elite types who are pulling the strings and making all of these decisions on our behalf, thank you very much. I didn't vote for any of you motherfuckers. I'm pretty sure that the decentralized plans that they want to move forward with would probably be dictated and programmed using these quote unquote smart contracts with some of these crypto blockchain technologies that are dictated by these artificial intelligence programs that are emulating the thoughts and the ideas of these trusted and respected leaders who I just aforementioned, who, again, I didn't vote for any of these motherfuckers. So what if we had like a permanent forever Bill Gates forever doing his shit and a forever Klaus Schwab forever doing his shit? And it's like literally forever because it's programmed in. And once it's programmed in, you can't back out. I don't know. I think we're going to just move into like this crazy world that I don't even want to be a part of, to be honest with you. So Luckily, I'm pretty sure that's so far in the future that I might not be around because I'm probably going to die fighting against it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, what do you think about that? I think Ruckus just said a lot that needed to be said right there. It's the people that are wielding this fucking power that we should be worried about. We don't need if anyone gets to live forever, I don't think it's going to be you or me or Ruckus or Oddman or Spore. It is going to be some ghoulish character who can just I don't know. I don't know. Where do we go from here, Mark? I'll go around the room and then we'll take a break here.
Well, I think for living forever, I do believe in eternity in the biblical sense. I'll say that, yeah, in the theological sense. That being said, there is a flip side to this. I've mentioned this on this show before, or on other boiler room venues. We have to be careful though, because we don't want to have a work state either. Okay, people say, well, if we have jobs, we're doing good. That's the right thing. But see, the state gets you coming and going. If you're on welfare and you're not working, people will say, well, they shouldn't be drawing off the public wheel. But the person not working also has time, if they can keep body and soul together, they also have time to get politically involved. See, the deep state wants you busy. They want to keep you at each other's throats. They want to divide us, of course, so we don't know who the real antagonists are. But they also want to keep you working. They want you to work 2 or 3 jobs. Don't kid yourself. And so they have kind of a double-tiered system. You're damned if you're working. You're damned if you're not working, in a sense. So it isn't really altogether bad that some low-level menial jobs might be taken over by automation, artificial intelligence. There was concerns about automation being too prevalent as far back as the 1930s. And all automated things aren't necessarily bad. I mean, human beings still have to design the automation machines. There's a business right down the street here in Ann Arbor that deals with automated systems. And in my hometown of Bridgman, in that area, St. Joe, Michigan, there's large companies, pretty big and successful ones that make the means of automation. And so what do, right? And Hesher, I think you and I discussed this once, and without getting into it too long because we're going on a break, but there's something called the wage of the machine, where the wealth created by the machines is paid out as a dividend to the people. The people become shareholders in kind of a co-op. And so you're freed from the manual labor. You're freed from the obligatory menial labor. You pursue a career or calling of your own design. And the curse of Adam, as it's sometimes described, is lifted off our backs, and we're free to be more dynamic individuals, you see. And so you have to be careful with this idea that human employment is in and of itself a good thing. Work as we know it has to be a means to an end, not an end in itself. And if it's an end in itself, you're just going to be a proletarian in the work state, marching off to work every day, marching home, maybe going to a second or third job, drinking, taking pills just to keep up. You're still falling behind. It's something that's for another discussion for another day, maybe. But I'm just saying you have to be careful of the idea that, if automation replaces our jobs, that's the end of the world. No, it's not. In fact, it could be the beginning of a much better world. But as we're also saying, too few people hold all the cards right now. And so we have to figure out a way to wrest that control from them. And I won't get into it now. There are some practical things that I think could be done. But as I've said, and I'm like a broken record on this one, we've got to get the narrative. The narrative is everything.
Yep.
And that is worth more than all the gold in all the world that has ever existed. And that they're protecting that narrative much more than they're protecting probably other assets they have. Because if you get that narrative enough, and we're getting more of it every day, then you can talk about what we're talking about now, to broader, larger audiences, and people can really start thinking. And I've got to go now. There's something I have to tend to. I got to get up early tomorrow, but I saw this guy today. I was in a drugstore getting something, and I overheard this guy say, "Well, me and my son." And if I understood it, it was him and his son who was with him. He was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and they're both wearing their masks really tight. I mean, like the old days in 2020, right? And they're wearing their masks. And I heard him say, we're here to buy this product, but we want the COVID shot. And I was walking out of the store, and something pricked my conscience, and I just couldn't make myself walk out of that store without warning it. So I walked back over to him as politely and unobtrusively as I could. I said, "Excuse me, sir. I'm just saying that these jabs are very, very hazardous. I happen to work as a journalist, and I can tell you firsthand that a lot of things you hear are not true, and they're hiding a lot from you about the hazards of these vaccines." And he got very defensive. He goes kind of like, "Well, I've checked it out. Well, I don't think it's that bad." And he was kind of shaky, sort of ambivalent looking, although I couldn't see his whole face because of that stupid mask. He was like a blast from the past from 2 years ago. He looked as scared as he was certain that he wanted to get that shot, almost totally conflicted. And what I said to him just made more conflicting. I don't think that I started his conflicting. I think it was there already, and I just maybe increased it a little. But I was trying to be sort of that muse, if you will, that person that just happens to be there at the right time to give him that warning. And so I listened to what the voice in my head, if you will, and some of us are still trapped in the 2020 mindset. The system has a way of keeping you stuck in the recent past. Almost like it's still 2020 to him. It's almost like he was in a time warp, and it was just a weird experience. But I'll leave it at that. I do kind of got to cut out, but I can stay till the break.
All
but
right,
I wanted to get that out there about the work state and the lumpen proletariat. They want us to work our lives away, and so we can stay busy. We can be employed in certain things, but it has to be something of our making, at least to a reasonable extent. We can't let the society define what our pursuits in life will be. We're better than that.
Yeah, I like what you say right there, Mark. My first guest on my show today was a man named Gregory Deal, and he's an American that's living in Armenia. So Armenia has basically only been outside sort of Soviet influence for like 30 years, and he wrote a book called "Everyone is an Entrepreneur," and it was striking to me when he was telling me what it was like to have grown up in Southern California, lived all over the world, then moved to Armenia, and realized that they're like 30 years away from that Soviet influence, yet it's still lurking in the people there, in the sense that they just did not have any sort of entrepreneurial drive. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, if I need something, it's at that store. I gotta go that many miles away, it's at that store. Like, nobody even thought about opening their own store or shortening supply chains. Like, so I guess what I'm getting at is kind of trying to back you up here and say, if what we are talking about tonight, this idea of a fourth industrial revolution, the technocratic, blah, 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 artificial intelligence, all this stupid sci-fi technocratic crap, then, and they're pushing it in this sort of centralized way, global governance, we risk losing that spirit of like, I have an idea, I can go out and do it. Then it just becomes, I rent it. Someone else with smarter than me made it. I rent it. Then I die. I work, I rent, I die. Life, and like that gets built into your cultural programming, and then even generations later, if that tyranny is removed, it takes a long time to get that spirit back. So I appreciate what you're saying there, Mark. I know you got to jam soon. I know Ruckus has to jam soon. So I'm going to take a quick goodbye from Mark and then Ruckus, final comments, and then Odd Man Out. So you two guys can jump out as quick as possible. Mark, real quick, any final thoughts before you bail out?
Yeah, I was talking to Bob Klink, a friend of mine in Canada, and he's studied these different economic theories and different scenarios. And it's interesting to think about it this way. If you have, and this is long before the Klaus Schwabs of the world, who are really kind of borrowers. It was revealed at the Red Pill Conference that Klaus Schwab didn't come up with this on his own. He borrowed from some other book. He's really just a second-hander. And so the guy acts like he's so innovative and such a soothsayer. You know, he's just another fraud. And at any rate, what my friend Bob was saying was that if managed properly, automated production and the efficiency of production, it actually should be designed, in a sense, to eliminate the need for obligatory employment. In other words, human employment would only be used to the extent that human labor is needed as part of the labor equation. And if machines can make most of what we need, then we can do something else. You see, we don't become irrelevant. We could become more of an aristocratic class, if you will. So the technology itself isn't necessarily bad. It's kind of like with money. People say, well, the Fed creates money out of thin air. That's bad. Well, what's bad about it is it's interest bearing, and they don't really incur any costs in creating it, and they don't really incur any risks in loaning it. The person who's the so-called borrower incurs all the risks and liabilities and stands to lose real property in like a repossession or foreclosure process if you don't honor the debt. But there's nothing really inherently wrong with a debit card or with creating money, quote, on the thin air, as long as it's not interest bearing and as long as you don't have these foreclosure powers granted to the banks. So some of what's in the so-called fourth industrial revolution, if you break it down into constituent parts and get rid of the Klaus Schwabs of the world, there's some things there that could actually be liberating. But these people want to own it the way the banks want to own the ability, the monopoly of credit, the monopoly of loaning money, which really should constitutionally belong to the government. The government should create the monetary unit free of interest. Whether it's gold backed or not is another question. In other words, tools in different hands can be a good thing if we can figure out a way to where the same people don't always end up holding all the cards. And so it isn't necessarily a bad thing to make the kind of progress that frees us from having to work our whole lives away so we can pursue higher callings. It can be entrepreneurial. It could be religious. It could be all sorts of philosophical or business or ethical pursuits, traveling the world, becoming a musician, always doing what we've always wanted to do. And then the production of goods and services could be largely automated. It is possible to create that kind of future, but there's a lot of baggage in the way. And so I'm just saying we have to be careful that we don't jump to too many conclusions to where we overlook some of the benefits that are out there, but are unfortunately right now too many cards are held by too few people. And I think that ties back into the control of the narrative. If you can get that narrative away from them and we can have these kind of discussions where, again, like I said earlier, where a lot more people, not that we don't have a good audience, we do, but a lot more people can hear these things, then we can break all these monopolies up and rebuild the society in a very humane and passionate way that would be a much better world. And yes, it would be a reset, but a reset of the right kind. There's nothing necessarily wrong with a reset, but the people that hold all the cards want it all to go one way, and that's their way. So I'm just trying to be as objective as I can here in this whole thing.
Yeah, so there is a not so great reset happening that's going to wrap up all of technology. Basically, it's going to be part of it, and that's the one that we're concerned about. If we all had a representative sort of trajectory that was humane and agreeable and fair, we could do some pretty amazing stuff. I totally agree, Mark. That's well said. Over to Ruckus. Ruckus, I know you got to jam out, man. I know you, Mark, got to jam out. I think we'll probably all jam out soon in a minute here. But over to you for any final thoughts, shout outs, anything you want to say before we get out of here tonight, Ruckus.
Jam. I prefer to say jelly myself. Yeah.
You're gonna jelly out over here, man.
I don't know. I'm kind of. I got to save some rounds for the Joseph Arthur and his Technicolor Dreamcast, which is where I got to bounce out to here soon. So I don't know. I'll just share a quick quote with everybody from Thomas Paine. That's a pretty famous dude, in case you younger folks didn't know. But he once said, "quote The greatest tyrannies are always perpetrated in the name of the noblest causes." End quote. So put that in perspective with the conversation we had this evening, and I hope that's a nice little cherry that I popped on this Sunday, which was an absolute blast of a Sunday, I might add. Still feeling good, so I'm glad we didn't get down too far. Who am I kidding? Yeah, we're kind of effed. It's pretty dark. Those black pills hurt. I'm just trying to maintain my happy face because I got to go do another hour's worth of this. So
That's right, man.
thanks for having me, everybody. And regardless of what happens, I still firmly believe in the thing that I always say to everybody, which is, may God bless each and every one of you, and may God save this republic. Ruckus out.
All right, there he goes, everybody. That's Ruckus. You can find him on the Boiler Room Weekly. You can find him on the Daily Ruckus. Find him at alternatecurrentradio.com. Find him in our Discord. Find him on tntradio.live on Joseph Arthur's Technicolor Dreamcast, which will be starting up. Well, it's already started up. It started up a half hour ago. So Ruckus will be live over there in about 27 minutes, in precisely 27 minutes. All right. Thanks, Ruckus. Thanks, Mark. Odd man out. Over to you, bro. You've been waiting in the wings for a minute there. These guys got to bounce out. So it's me and you to close out the show over here. And we're gonna reconnect tomorrow on my TNT show, on the Brian McLean show over on TNTradio.live. You're gonna be my first guest tomorrow, I believe. So that's gonna be 10 a.m. So 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern time. You and I will be live again, but for now, as far as wrapping up this episode, man, it's over to you. What do you think of all that? Mark and Ruckus really, they both went on a bit of a bender about this. Pretty amazing how we took the icebreaker from the beginning of the show all the way to the end, man. But it's amazing.
That was cool, man. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate what Mark was saying because, we do tend to get, or I tend to get too black pilled about things. And he's right. There are positives in these situations. And certainly the way each individual handles what he's given means a lot too. We don't have to just accept defeat and just go with their heads down because we think the future is going to be a certain way. So it's good to hear people say things like that. I read stuff like Neil Postman. He had that book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. And a lot of it was about technology, the coming technology. And I think he wrote it in like 84. So it was really before the internet kicked up. But he predicted a lot of things. And I think he was kind of basing that book on maybe Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, because he talks about him quite a bit in there. But, we've known that technology could be dangerous for a very long time. And it's one of those things I think we have to respect. And we've given a lot of our, freedoms away for, fun, for convenience. and I'm as bad. I'm just as much to blame as anyone else because, I wouldn't be doing a podcast if I didn't have this technology. But, it's just something that we need to think about, and kind of think about how we're going to handle the future. And if more things do become, become more computerized and more, uh, take what I'm trying, excuse me, it's getting late. If, things, a lot of jobs go away, which we know that they probably are, um, it's not the end of the world. We've got to figure out how we're going to, to handle it. And it is cool too, uh, that what we can do now with StreamYard and Zoom and different things like that, people can still make a living and they don't, have to travel as much. And, that's a good thing, really. But yeah, I think it's just about how we as individuals handle it. And hopefully, if enough of us band together, we can prevent some of the really bad things from happening, the really dark side of this, technocratic world that we're headed for.
Yeah, yeah, and all that takes is a bunch of people using their fucking common sense, It's not that much to ask for. Just break outside of the dialectics a little bit, break outside of the inbound propaganda a little bit, allow yourself to question everything like we used to do. Everybody remember that? We used to question everything. We used to question narratives, and it's time to recapture that. It's time to recapture that spirit. Time to recapture, our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, all those things, all those rights that people fought so hard for, and time to hold on to them because if we don't, they will weaponize this stuff against us. They've weaponized the internet against us. They've weaponized 24/7 cable media against us. They've weaponized social media against us. They've weaponized the closest thing they can generate to an AI as possible against us. And by us, I'm talking about almost everybody, all of us, even the one or two progressive liberals that have made it this far into this show. It's weaponized against you too. It's made to atomize you too. And it's made to make us fight amongst each other while they work on new paradigms for us to live under. And every time they come up with a new paradigm for us to live under, it has less and less and less fucking freedom in it. So that's all we're hoping to avoid over here. Well, that's one thing on a long list of things we're hoping to avoid, but it's a high level thing that if we can maintain, we don't have to worry about losing a lot of other things to technocracy, technology, et cetera, et cetera. So let's all stay engaged in the conversation. We'll keep it going and see what we can do. There's nothing we can do to stop it, man. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we can't go out and say, hey, Bill Gates or hey, Klaus Schwab, whatever. We can tweet till our fingers fall off, but that's not going to do anything. But what we can do is try to, just lead by example, us, me, you, our other colleagues over here and out there in the same information sphere, and all the people listening to this and say, you know what? God damn it. Damn it. I have a First Amendment right. And damn it, I'm not afraid to be called this or that by someone who is stuck in an identity politic and trained to dislike me. Just fuck that. We're over it at this point.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's just everything is so dumbed down and so tribal now that people like us, we can kind of stand, and I've always been like, I have my own biases. I'm pretty open about that, but I could stand kind of back and watch people, online arguing about this, that, and the other. And a lot of times it's just like your team rivalry. There's no really depth to their arguments. One guy, he would defend his guy for doing the exact same thing he's mad at the other guy, the opposition leader for doing. You see that time and time again now, and it's like they're caught up, like you said, in this whole left right thing, and a lot of the technology, the way the algorithms work and stuff like that, have kind of kept people in those boxes, in those bubbles purposely because they want us fighting and they want us to be divided. And, it's hard to argue that I don't see anyone could not agree with that. But, we have to keep our wits about us and bring back dialogue, bring back talking about real ideas and, bring back real discussions, open, honest discussions, because, nothing moves forward in a good way if you're not communicating. So I think that's number one. And I think that people deep down, a lot of people who are intellectually curious, they definitely want to talk about issues. They don't want to just be told what to do and go on about their business.
Yeah, man. We talked to a guy in town today, just, an acquaintance, a local. Asked him how it's going. He said, I went to 2 funerals today. I'm like, 2 in 1 day? Yep, 2 in 1 day. Were they both hella old? Nope. Nope, not both of them. Nope. So and I'm hearing this all over the place. People all the time I'm hearing this from people. It's just like it's becoming all too common. Coolio died yesterday, 59. No drugs found there. Cardiac arrest out of nowhere. What's up with all this? What's up with all this? We did not see a spike in deaths in 2020 when we would have expected to. We just saw a bunch of fucking numbers getting shifted around. Oh, there's no more influenza. There's all this other stuff, whatever these PCR things are picking up, right? Same amount of people dead pretty much. But then in 2021 and now, especially in 2022, all of a sudden there is a rise in all told mortality. And they want to just piss on us and tell us it's raining and it's good for us and that there's a drought here, have some rain and just get used to it. We're in charge of the changing paradigm now. Well, you know what? People are sick of the fear porn. They're sick of the fear prawn. They're not buying it anymore. So, all these other gambits they're running, technocracy, technology, singularity, food shortage, war. I think the global population is really starting to see through all these stupid gambits at this point. So I don't know what they got planned, man, but they're gonna have to do better. They're gonna have to do better if they want to trick us, if they want to trick the odd man out, they want to trick the heshers of the world, the odd men and odd women out of the world. Social Rejects Club out there watching this and listening to this on the pod streams. Uh, they are gonna have to do better if they want to skull plug us in these directions because we're on to them. We know what they're up to. We see the ramifications of it. We see the path. We see the trajectory. We think it fucking sucks. We didn't elect any of these people. And we're telling them no, no, thank you. Right now, we're done. We're done with all this stupid crap. We're taking that narrative back, as Mark Anderson would like us to say. Timmer says, "Don't encourage them to think." Hesher, I'm sorry, I gotta call him out, man. I gotta call him out. But yeah, that's probably a good place to wind it down, man. Odd man out. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for the Oddcast. Everybody, make sure you're subscribed to those downloads of the Oddcast. You can find that at Podbean. You can find it at alternatecurrentradio.com. You find it at Spreaker. You find it pretty much any good podcasting system. Over to you, man. Save rounds. Final thoughts.
Yeah, man, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for having me. It was great to catch up again. And yeah, man, just everybody check me out at underscore the odd man out on Twitter and Instagram. And there's a link tree in both of the profiles. So you can find my other links too. But also check me out on alternatecurrentradio.com, their awesome website, and check out a bunch of the other shows because they got a lot of good shows on there.
That's right, man. That's right. Check us out at Alternate Current Radio. That's Odd Man Out, everybody. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. It was great having you today. And that's it, everybody. That's it. We're going to close this episode of the Boiler Room down. Thank you for joining us tonight over here at alternatecurrentradio.com, Spreaker.com, Rockfin.com, wherever the heck else.com. We might be blasting out tonight. And join me tomorrow for the Brian McLean Show at tntradio.live. That starts at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Central time, and 11 a.m. Eastern time. It goes for 3 hours. Odd Man Out will be joining me there. And I've got a couple other cool guests too. I'm going to have Pat Jordan joining me in the third hour of that show. former chief of police in Los Angeles. And I'm going to have Leah Hoops joining also in the second hour. And she's going to talk to me about what she witnessed in Pennsylvania when the votes were being counted. She was a poll watcher, and she has a new book out with her partner, and it's pretty crazy. So if you're interested in voter integrity and that kind of stuff, definitely check me out tomorrow on that live show. But that's it for this episode of Boiler Room. We're out of here, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening, day, whatever, wherever, whenever you are, as Ruckus would say. Thanks for joining us here in the Boiler Room, and we'll see you again for another live broadcast real soon.
That's it. Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.